Hey, have you ever tried to ice skate? Yeah, ice skate. Well, today's guest does a bit more than that. He sticks them on his feet and competes in this new sport, this new winter craze that Red Bull's throwing a lot of money at, called Ice Crash Downhill. It's been called the fastest sport on skates. Get ready, let's jump or skate right in.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. In today's episode, I have a fireside chat with a great young Australian up-and-coming athlete, Llowing Webb. Llowing's sport is a new sport. Ice Crash Downhill. That's right, Ice Crash Downhill. Have I got you intrigued? I think so. Let's jump straight in with today's guest. Llowing, welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thanks for having me on board.
Mate, this is an interview I've been itching to have because I'm full of intrigue. An interview I've been itching to do, I should say, because I'm full of intrigue about this sport. Before we even deep dive into this new sport, Llowing, I want to start straight out of the gates with asking you, what's one thing that scares you the most?
The one thing that scares me the most? Probably not performing to what I think I could do is probably the most terrifying thing, both at work and in the sport. So
what scares you about not performing, say, on the sporting pitch, so to speak, which for you, we'll talk about in a moment, it's on ice?
The hardest part, I think, for me is coming from obviously a country that doesn't really have a lot of the winter sports involved in it. Getting over there and just being an embarrassment. But I think this first time is a good way to hold up for a first performance.
Well, let's talk about it. Tell us, Llowing, enlighten the listeners to what your sport, Ice Crash Downhill, they've termed it the fastest sport on skates, is actually all about.
The crashed ice downhill is practically, imagine a BMX track down the side of a mountain on ice skates. That's probably the best way to put it. I've had many people ask how do you explain it, and that's probably the best one I can come up with so far.
So, look, I jumped on and had a look at the Red Bull site, and I was just transfixed. It's wild, right? It's wild. So, tell us a bit more about the sport. Like, where did it start? How did it originate? And then how did you, a Brisbane boy, find your way into this?
I believe the history of it came from they used to ice skate down bobsleigh tracks. Right. Just after, when they're not used, they would do it just for fun, and it turned into a competition. And then someone started to get a bit bored and wanted to, I guess, spice it up a bit. And they started to, throw some jumps in and some more obstacles. For me to get into it, it was just seeing it a few years ago. And then I've had all the aspects of the actual competition. So I've skated inline for years, I've ice skated for years, I've street skated for years, and I thought it's a perfect sport to put them all together and push myself to the limit.
So this is, you said that they're using these, redundant tracks after, they've used them. This is in Europe, I presume?
It was, yes.
And, okay, so this is the origins of it. And so when did it start to, say, attract the likes of Red Bull, who are, they look like they're the major, I guess, sponsor or name or brand behind what looks to be like an international series. Is that right? Yeah,
they are the major brand behind it. There are other series, I guess. I do know Finland has a side series that they have their upcoming races compete in to get entry into the Red Bull.
So there's a couple, two series, World Series?
Yes. So Finland has their own little internal series, but then the biggest races from that then go into that. It was almost like a qualifier, I guess you'd call it.
To go into the Red Bull one?
To go into the Redbull Crashed Ice events, yes.
Okay, got it. So, all right. So that's a bit of background on the sport. And how did you then, Brisbane, Australia, come across this sport, and then how did you start to do it?
I came across it a few years ago, as everyone else has, I guess, this year after the event. It just pops up on your Facebook feed or on a YouTube video. Someone's like, this is crazy. You got to have a look at this. And I remember seeing it and I'm just like, I would love to try that one day.
So you saw it on Facebook or some social platform. How long ago was this, Luke?
That would have been about 3 years ago.
So 3 years ago. And at that point, did you have much of a Nordic ice type existence? Had you ever been on skates, or was this complete foreign territory for you?
No, I have played ice hockey for a number of years, so that was a good background into it.
So you've been an ice hockey player in Brisbane?
Yeah, correct, yes.
Yep, and doing that for how many years?
I think I started that about 21.
So 21. How old are you now, Luke?
26.
So 26, so 5-year history of ice, because 21's, excuse me if I'm wrong, but that's a fairly late start to even ice skating in ice hockey. Would that be fair?
Yeah, well, a lot of the competitors I compete against have lived on skates since they could walk. So it is a much larger age gap difference between the skills of what they have and I have.
Yeah, so you started at 21. You must have shown a bit of skill and promise to sort of pick that up and go with that for 5 years before you could start to look at ice crash downhill, right?
There isn't too much of a difference between rollerblading and ice skating. The grip factor between the two is a big issue, but if you can do one, you most likely can do the other.
Okay, so there's a bit of an overlap.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so you're 26 and you kick off your ice crash downhill. When did you first set skate on actually an ice crash downhill course? Like, where did that happen? When?
That would have been my first event in Bathurst, New Brunswick, for my first practice run of the night.
Where's New Brunswick? Excuse my ignorance.
That is northeast Canada.
So northeast Canada. So you headed over there. Never been on one of these courses before?
Never.
Ever?
Never.
And you'd been riding your ice skates, or skating your ice skates, I should say, around the local Brisbane ice rink.
Yeah, so a lot of training on rink and a lot of rollerblading training, a lot of in the gym as well, just to get the power up and I guess the core strength to be able to keep yourself upright on one of the tracks.
And I've seen on your Instagram feed pictures of big chunks out of your legs and knees. I presume that's when you're out on your roller skates.
The actual Instagram cut there, that was the little event that happened to that I accidentally caused to someone else in a game.
Oh, right. Okay. So
that was using my race skate cut. So they're quite sharp when you use them on the track.
Yep.
And a little incident if you accidentally stand on someone.
So that wasn't a result of being out training specifically for ice crash downhill on your blades.
No, not quite. That was just an ice hockey game. We had a full contact ice hockey game at Acacia Ridge a couple weekends ago. All
right. So, mate, you don't shy away from the contact sports, do you?
No, it keeps it exciting. The adrenaline's good.
Oh, mate. All right. So, okay. So you get over to New Brunswick. Describe this run, this course. Describe it for listeners. You're standing at the top. What lays beneath you?
This course is probably the best course to begin on. It was the flattest, and it was the average length, so about 300 to 400 meters. This course was a 5 meter straight sprint to a meter drop down a ramp up to a 4 meter tabletop, around a right berm, and then a left 45 degree corner down another meter drop over a couple of motorbike style whoops. And then a couple of random obstacles on the bottom there. They're just sort of one-way ramps, so you have to jump up the high side and roll down it. And then it finished up with a 90-degree corner and an uphill sprint. So
not all courses finish at a lower elevation. You do sometimes have a flat course with an uphill bit at the end. Is that right?
This one was the flattest course. I think the vertical drop across the course itself was only 2 or 3 meters.
Okay, so if I'm picturing, say, a BMX Olympic Games track, with a bit of a difference. It's on ice and it's probably a bit more radical, but probably getting somewhere near it.
Yeah. So imagine the starting ramp height to their finish line. Yep. It'll probably be the vertical drop of this course.
Got it. And how many meters? What's the length?
I think this one was about the 350 meter mark.
Okay, so significant distance. And how many guys or competitors, athletes, next to you?
So in the qualifying and the practice, there's just you do single runs.
Yep. So it's just time trial?
Just time trials, yeah. In the racing, there's individual racing, there's 4 at a time, so
right.
3 other competitors, and they do have a team event at the Crashed Ice races, which actually has 6 people on track at once, which gets a bit crowded.
So that's a team doing a team time trial?
That's the actual team race. They have 2 teams of 3 race down the track in one go.
So is it just a matter of survival?
Yeah, they have a point system. So obviously, first place gets an X amount of points. Second place gets a lower amount of points. Then the team that has the most amount of points over the finishing race follows through the next round.
Okay, so all right, that'd be hectic. So did you ever go at that one, or just the individual runs?
Just the individual ones this time. I did have the invitation to do a team event, but I was trying to keep myself safe for the individuals. It does get a bit hectic out there. Right.
So how far on this first outing? This story reminds me of cool run-ins, right? The Jamaicans go into the Olympic Games for the bobsled. You know, you're from a hot climate in Australia over to this. So you get over there, your first run. How deep did you get into this first competition?
First competition, I missed out on top 64 racing by, I think it was a tenth of a second.
Right.
Out of 160 competitors.
Wow. And where were the bulk of these competitors from, Luke?
So the top 64 usually ranges from the people on the actual Crashed Ice Tour, because they do get points for the qualifiers as well. And then a lot of them range from around the area, so around the Canadian area there.
Okay, so you did really well to just miss that top 64, 68, 60...
top 64.
64. So that was a pretty incredible start, really.
Yeah, I was really happy with that, considering I'd never skated on natural ice before. I've never skated in snow before. I hadn't really dealt with a real winter before. There were a lot of conditions there that definitely made my first race. I was quite proud of myself.
Yeah, wow. So the year of this New Brunswick first meet was when? 2000 and...
that one was February this year.
So we're talking February 2016. So
Correct.
I want to go on from there, but just quickly, you mentioned the Crashed Ice Tour. What's that about?
So the tour itself is, so they split the Crashed Ice Tour into 2 different, I guess, grades. So you have your Riders' Cup series, which is the qualifier series. So they're races put on by riders for riders, and they allow anyone to go in and sign up, compete, and then you can get entry into the actual Crashed Ice events if you finish in top 3, and you do accumulate points, which then do also go towards the Redbull Crashed Ice entries. And then you have the Redbull Crashed Ice events themselves. There's 5 events spanning across the Northern Hemisphere. So they range from USA, Canada. They have one in Munich, Finland. They have had it in Niagara Falls. Just anywhere they can get a good view and some good racing, they'll put them there.
Yeah, right. So with the series, how many guys or competitors, athletes are actually on the series full-time? Are they full-time athletes, or are they most of them working jobs, or...?
So the only real full-time athletes I know are, say, the top 1 or 2 in each country. So, for example, current world champion Cameron Nyes, he lives off sponsorship money. Scott Croxall actually he's number 2 in the world at the moment, actually has a clothing brand he uses to help push him through the competition. A lot of everyone else just works and uses it on the side to keep competing.
Okay, so got it. So, all right, now going back to February 2016, you came back from Canada. Have you been back on the ice since, Luke?
I have. I actually came straight back after the competition and started training again, because it's not too far till the next year.
So when's the next competition?
The next competition should begin in their winter, so about November, towards the end of November. We're expecting the first Crashed Ice event to be on.
Great. And that will be held in Canada again?
They're still waiting for the actual tour to be announced. I know which places will be involved, but the actual order is still up in the air. Okay.
So will you be doing one event, or possibly getting onto this tour? What do you need to do to get onto the tour, or can you just rock up at all the events, Luke?
I'm in a really good position that I currently have championship points, and which makes me the number 1 Australian rider, which then puts me on the tour. The only downside with the tour is it's not exactly cheap to fly to and from each event on the other side of the world.
Yeah, of course. So who have you got in your support team to help you get there?
So far I have obviously my main job.
Yep.
I have a few sponsors that are on board as well.
Yep.
So I have the awesome guys at Body Science, Loose Kit Industries, the extreme sporting clothing company from the Gold Coast, also on board.
Yep.
Disown the Throne, another apparel company. And friends and family help out. For this first event, I put a GoFundMe out, and a lot of them jumped on board and helped out with a couple of dollars here and there, which definitely made a big difference.
Well, fantastic. And, mate, we'll be linking that up in the show notes. So anyone listeners to the Physical Performance Show who want to get behind you to help see you get over there and show the world what Aussies can do in this new exciting sport can get behind you.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so definitely. So listeners, look out for the show notes on this episode. Now, you mentioned job. Luke, I was very amused but also inspired to read your Instagram bio, Ice Crash Downhill, Australian Redbull Crashed Ice Athlete, chemical and metallurgical engineer. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was my main challenge before this event. So I'd been studying that for studied at University of Queensland to do chemical and metallurgical engineering. Graduated that. The industry wasn't too flash hot back then, so ended up getting offered a position at the JKRMC, which is the University of Queensland Research Mine in Indooroopilly, to do a master's project for Newcrest. So jumped right on board for that.
So you've had an interest in chemical work. Is this something you grew up wanting to do, engineering, or?
I was, as any young kid, you never really know what you want to do, and I had my grade 11 chemistry teacher was an old chemical metallurgical engineer. She worked for Extrata, and she used to tell me all the stories about their high pressure acid leaching job she used to work for, and it just took my fancy, and ever since then I wanted to get into metallurgy and never looked back. Wow.
So I mean, for listeners that aren't familiar, I'm not uber familiar with some from the health sector, the health space. What do you do in metallurgy? Make things, minerals and stuff, right?
Yeah, so metallurgy is mineral processing. Okay. So you anything to do really on a mine site that involves the process of the materials, or any post-mine work to do with a metal, I guess. So electroplating is a big one that people go into. But anything to do with a metal is usually up our alley.
So you work full-time in this role, in this capacity?
Yes, I do.
Tell us what your training schedule looks like around that, Luke.
It's a bit hard because I also have a second job I do on weekends.
Well, tell us about that. What's that involved?
That usually keeps me. That one's just a casual job, just like a Repco in Indooroopilly. I used to work in automotive stores when I was studying, and so it's always an easy way to help people out. Plus, a bit of problem solving is always fun on a weekend.
Like, you don't get enough of that with your full-time job?
different sorts of problem solving. One problem solving will take 3 months to fix. One you can fix in 20 minutes. And it's good to have that satisfaction every now and then.
That quick fix, that's great. The quick wins, right? So just got to ask, what do your work colleagues think about your other career?
Oh, they all think I'm an idiot.
as in idiot lovingly, or like, Luke, he's wild, or like, seriously, what are you doing?
Yeah, usually the conversation starts with where were you in February? So I tell them where I went, what I was doing. They were like, I've never heard of that. So you show them the video and they're a bit disbelieved. They're like, this is a sport? How is this even possible?
Oh, that's brilliant. So, because when I think engineers, I just stereotypically sort of think along the lines of accountants, right? They're generally detail oriented. So, in generalising worlds, quite conservative. But you certainly break that mould. Yeah, no, it was good to have, I guess, that extreme side for when you're just stuck at a desk working. I guess almost 24/7 as a student, you sort of find your ways to get out and relax, right? And some people go party a lot, and some people go and do gym a lot. And I just thought maybe skating's the way to do it. Maybe the way to go. So, mate, all right. So let's talk about your training schedule. You said you're juggling 2 jobs plus the training schedule. What does that entail? So trying to train for this is a bit hard in Australia because obviously there's no specific actual way to train for it. There are lots of things you could try to do for the aspects of it. So a usual afternoon after work, you'd go home, have some dinner, try and get to the gym and just work on some power or some speed or anything you can do to sort of build up your body that way. And then I guess you have the other aspect of it's good to get out onto an ice rink, skate around, get the feet back underneath you and try and push yourself
harder than you can, so you can learn more about yourself on skates.
Yep.
One of the big things they did recommend is actually rollerblading at skate parks, because it gets used to I guess skating on a surface that isn't flat.
So how often are you getting out to do that?
I get out as often as I can. When I first got back, I was skating every day of the week.
Yep.
But that's sort of gotten a bit tiresome with like my master's picking up as well since I got back. But there is a good little thing you can do, and it's a weird one because I always get weird looks when you do it. But you actually go on rollerblade on BMX tracks.
Yeah.
So on the dirt, they're the tracks themselves that are a bit difficult to do, but I guess it's the same. You just have to get yourself out of your comfort zone to learn how to keep yourself safe, right? So
yeah. So when you say you get weird looks, what, from the BMXs?
Yeah, from the BMXs. I went there on the long weekend that we just had, and there was a dozen or so riders there. That's their usual track, and I rock up with some rollerblades, and they're all like, "What's this kid doing?"
And did they actually say that, or you just perceived they were, thinking that, processing that?
After I had some runs on the track and they saw it was like something you can seriously do, they come up and had a chat, and they were like, "I've never ever seen someone on rollerblades before doing this." So it's a bit of a left field there.
So kudos to you. They were probably pretty impressed.
They were impressed, because you can jump some of the jumps that they can jump, and they're a bit shocked.
Yeah, so that all of a sudden you've gained some notoriety, Luke, hey?
Yeah, it was good actually. A few of them jumped online to have a look at what it's all about and ended up following on. So they're gonna keep seeing me at their track, which is going to be good.
You will convert them, mate, from two wheels to skates to the ice.
Oh, they said they'd be terrified of rollerblades.
So, all right. So and I've just got to ask, backtrack. You said that they said to go and get the skates on skateboard parks, right? Who's they? Do you mean the Europeans that are ahead of you, so to speak, in terms of the genesis of the sport, or this is a coach, or who was giving you that advice?
No coach. Just all the other competitors are actually really, really helpful. So coming across and doing something that hasn't happened in Australia before, a lot of the competitors are really good at giving out tips and tricks and hints, and so some of the top guys, I had sort of picked their brain before I had to fly back home and try to get a bit of a training schedule at least started for when I got back, so I knew what to expect and what to keep it going. And they're all a lot of them, what they said the same thing, so it was good to see.
Yeah, okay, so that was consistent advice, so you took it, and that's smart. So anything else, strength and conditioning? What else is part of your training program, Luke?
Usually just trying to eat healthy, because it's a bit hard if you're working two jobs and you go to train. If you get home, you don't really want to cook, but you got to keep on top of it and make sure you're eating healthy, because it's so tempting those times just to get a pizza.
So you get home. What time normally in a day? What time do you actually get home?
I get home about 5:30.
Yep, and so how are you eating healthy? What are you doing? Tell listeners.
I usually try and cook a few nights in advance, because it saves me spending hours every day in the kitchen. So for this week, for the last couple of days, I've just had some Moroccan chicken, brown rice, veggies, something nice and simple that it doesn't get boring after a couple of days.
Yeah, so all right, so you batch it, mate. You do the good old batch for the week, Monday to Friday.
That's the one.
And then sleep. So tell us, Luke, has there been a period in your career, which to date for Ice Crash Downhill is relatively short, where your commitments wavered and you've sort of second guessed what you're doing?
Not so much for the crash. Oh, there was actually one event there where you get there and you just don't have a good practice, right? And there was one track we didn't have any skate sharpeners on site, and I ended up damaging my skates. And a lot of the actual competitors run multiple skates in case that happens, because they have the money in their backers to do it. But I just didn't have that option, so I destroyed my skates. I kept trying to push for my practice and qualifying, ended up falling multiple times and injuring myself. And I'm like, well, why am I competing here? I can't compete with these guys. But yeah, just that was probably the one point in the short crashed ice career I've had where I've sort of second-guessed myself and doubted if it was possible.
What's kept you staying the course? So how did you circumnavigate that doubt, Luke?
Actually, after that competition, one of the other competitors on the way back to the next event, he actually has his own ice rink that we stopped at. And I got my skates resharpened, and Yeah, as you do over there, I guess. And then, we just got back on the ice and skated around, and I guess it took the competitiveness out of it because we all got some hockey sticks and hit a puck around, had some fun, and it just made me remind myself that this is for fun. It's not to be number one. It's to get in there, try it out, and then come back next year and show them what you can really do.
So it's all about just seeking your physical best in this sport, and you refer to next year being 2017, right? February 2017 or thereabouts, or maybe November.
Yeah, they'll run it like a 2016, 2017 year. So the last comp was a 2015, 2016 year, just because it jumps over that year there.
Yeah, I understand. So, right. So Luke, what do your immediate family think of your new sport? Your focus on this new sport, mum, dad. Have you got any siblings?
Yeah, one older brother, one younger brother.
And so you're in the middle.
I am. The troublesome middle child.
So what does the eldest brother think about their now infamous, according to the BMXers locally, or famous, according to Red Bull internationally, think about their ice crash downhill brother? What does your oldest brother say?
They love it.
They love it?
Yeah, so the actual St. Paul qualifying, my brother was... He was on his work computer at home watching the live updates on the times, just constantly. I kept getting messages from him being like, "How is it going? How have you run?" And yeah, they love seeing it and getting to watch it, and it's good.
That's cool. So, and what about your youngest brother?
Yeah, he enjoys it just as much. He doesn't. I guess my older brother's in business and marketing, so he has a bit more idea of what happens when you're involved in something at a level like that. My little brother, he thinks I'm just as crazy.
When you grew up, what sports did you grow up doing as a teenager at school, or were you more academic? I mean, you're clearly an intelligent guy doing the work you do. Were you ever into sports growing up?
Yeah, I have played inline hockey since I was about 7.
So when you say inland hockey, you mean normal hockey with a hockey stick and hockey ball?
Like inlines, like rollerblades.
Oh, inline, sorry. I thought you said inland. And I'm thinking that's an interesting... I haven't heard of the description for hockey. Inland, so inline hockey. Yeah, okay, so got it. Yeah, okay, so you grew up with that, which I think you did mention. So, all right, so that was your early start. So, Luke, how did you get connected with our introduction via Body Science? How did you start to get sponsors on board with such a new sport?
The first time I went across was literally just write 100 emails to every company I could find that would be interested in something like this, put in all the information I can about my history, my background, and then hopefully someone would pick it up. And thankfully, Loose Kid Industries jumped on board, provided me with some awesome gear to go across, and awesome race jersey that stood out from everyone heads above shoulders. And then, I guess a lot of things the companies were worried about when you first go over is he serious? Can he do it? So, actually, when I was over there, I had James from Body Science message me and be like, when you come back, you got to meet my boss. And I did.
And that'd be Greg down at Body Science there, right? So, that's cool. So you were hustling to get your name, get your sport in front of people, and great to see that, there's companies out there that would see the merit in getting behind someone like yourself. It's terrific. The St. Paul event or competition, reading here on the Red Bull website, I might just read a paragraph here, Luke. It says, Australia's Luke Webb, representing the continent down under, is another one of the exotic athletes who are helping to spread the sport around the world. He saw some racing action online one day and he was hooked. I love being on ice, said Webb, must have been a student when they wrote it, who managed to get a respectable 77th place at the Redbull Crashed Ice Race in St. Paul after his debut at the Riders' Cup race in Bathurst, Canada, earlier in the season. So the St. Paul event or competition, is that different to the New Brunswick one?
Yep, so the New Brunswick one was the Riders' Cup event, so the qualifying events, and the St. Paul was the big crashed ice finale for the season.
Okay, so and you got into that because you were the top-ranked guy in Australia?
Correct.
Got it. So how many people were at this St. Paul event?
So the St. Paul event, I believe it was about 94 male competitors at this event.
Yep. And that was, where's St. Paul? Whereabouts?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay. So in the US. And was it televised? Like, or was Red Bull put it out, stream it, or how does the sport get out, tension-wise?
Yeah, so Red Bull have Red Bull TV, which is live streamed around the world. And then they also have contracts through Fox Sport 1, which also televise at different times throughout the I guess the season.
Okay, so got it. Now, do you see this sport becoming an Olympic sport, Luke? Is there any talk of that?
There is actually. So the whole events are run backed by the ATSX, the All Terrain Skate Cross Federation,
right? And
they are currently working on getting enough countries to have it become an Olympic event. So they're kind of happy because Australia was a country they thought they'd never get, and I'm currently working on getting that set up in Australia so we can at least have some sort of merit to send races across once we qualify.
Yeah, right.
But they are looking to try and have a trial event in the 2018 Winter Olympics.
Oh, nice.
And then from there, they're trying to get a full event in the 2022.
Yeah, okay. So where's 2018 Winter Games? Where are they being held?
I haven't actually looked too far into that.
Well, I feel better, Luke, knowing that you haven't. Because I was thinking, I'm showing my ignorance here, but I can't think where the Winter Olympics is for 2018. So I won't ask you about 2022 then, right? That's starting to get hard to say, isn't it? 2022.
Yeah.
The world was supposed to end, wasn't it, in 2000?
That was it.
Yeah, so beyond 2000, the old TV show. But, it's here we are. So, Luke, what's the craziest thing you've seen at these events?
There are some crazy things you can see. I guess some of the injuries are pretty intense. So at the actual St. Paul Crashed Ice event, we had someone fall off the main start and land on their wrist and snap their wrist in multiple places. So that was a bit of an intense one, but he still got up and skated. He skated till the pain wouldn't let him skate anymore, which is about 3/4 of the track, which everyone was a bit impressed with.
Yeah, wow. So where was that guy from?
That was a St. Paul local.
Yeah, okay. So he had the crowd support, probably the adrenaline pumping through, right? So you've seen a guy fall off the start line. Anything else? Anything where you've just gone, my gosh, this is just extreme. This is wild.
Yeah, that would have been when I walked up to the starting gate on the St. Paul track.
Well, how did that track differ from New Brunswick, the track that you described at the start, which was, a net drop of only a few metres? Are we talking more vert on this St. Paul track?
This track wasn't the steepest track I competed on. It was definitely the most extreme, though. So the track creators for the Redbull Crashed Ice wanted to try and push the limits to see what the athletes can do for next year. So the actual starting gate of the track was a 4-metre sprint to a 5.5-foot drop down to almost a 2-story quarter pipe you had to land into. So it was almost, it was a big fall if you messed it up, which I unfortunately did once.
Tell us about that.
So it was the last qualifying run for the day. They had a few injuries during qualifying, so they sort of pushed back the time further and further throughout the day. And it was a sunny day. The sun had been on the track all day, and this ice was soft and it was slushy. So the organisers came in and said, if you want to do your second run, you have to skate hard or you have to jump hard to make that landing ramp. And all I heard was skate hard and jump hard. So I did, and I just jumped, and I saw my landing point just disappear behind me, and I was just, this is going to hurt. I just tried to minimize the pain. But
any injury after it?
I hit the flat, and just pain shot up all my side, and I was just, it was funny because as soon as the pain hit, the one thing I could think of was, this is qualifying, keep skating. So just got back up and kept pushing through.
Oh, mate. So you got through. I mean, describe what was going through your head, Luke, when you did step up on that starting line. Like, what was the conversation you were having with yourself?
That starting line for the first time ever was literally, don't die.
Don't die.
Don't die.
So you're standing there at the start looking down going, all right, just don't die. That was your ambition.
Yeah, well, from the starting point, you can't actually see the landing ramp. You can just see straight off. And the first thing you can see is the second major obstacle, which was a 40-foot wall ride. So you don't see any of the first half of the track. So you're just there. And then in the starting gate, I'm just telling myself, like, don't back out. You're here. Just do it. Just do it. And then they say, rider ready. And you just give them the nod and they say, go. And you just run and jump.
Oh, wow. So, and then after that, you must have gained some confidence and been like, maybe a bit like, when you land after your first sky jump, you skydive, you're just like, get me back up there. Was that kind of the sensation?
Yeah, that was it. As soon as I finished, I had the biggest smile on my face. I was just goosebumps overall. And you're like, I can't believe I was scared of that. I need to get up and do it again.
So back you went. But I imagine, I've spoken to a few extreme athletes in the consultation reception room in my, my profession as a physiotherapist, where, some of the, dirt bike riders, the extreme stunt guys, I'll ask them, do you have to get yourself up every time you do a show? And they've told me, Luke, that it's not like you just rock up and it's just so second nature. Every time you do it, you've got to really get back in that zone and, overcome the doubt and the fears. I imagine for yourself, it's so infrequently that you get on these tracks that you'll probably have that sensation for, who knows, the rest of your career, won't you? But maybe to a lesser degree.
Yeah, so one of the good examples of that would have been on the Sherbrooke track. It was the steepest track, the fastest track as well. I think the top speed was between 65 and 70 kilometers an hour. And they had an open practice session. So you just got 2 hours of just skating down, straight back up, skating down, straight back up. The first time on the track, terrified. But at the end of the night, I second nature just to jump on the ice and go down it. And then you come back the next day to practice and you get back up the top again and you're like, why am I nervous? I just did this all day yesterday. I know how to do it. What's the difference? But yeah, you do definitely have to bring yourself back into that mindset to be able to throw yourself down the track again. Wow.
All right. So what are the other, Luke, extreme sports? Would we classify that? This is extreme. I'm classifying it as extreme, whether it's formally classified as extreme or not. Is it extreme? Is that what they classify it as?
Yeah, this is an extreme sport.
Yeah, I know. It's probably a silly question, but I hadn't actually researched to see if there was a definition that's there. But okay, great. We're talking. What are the other extreme sports, Luke Webb, that inspire you, or any extreme athletes? Who inspires you?
That's a hard one, isn't it?
Oh, that's good. It means I've asked a good question.
I don't really know, because I've always wanted just to try and push myself. So anyone doing their own sport and doing it well is always an inspiration, I guess, because coming from, I guess, a background of playing a lot of hockey and then going into this, I definitely understand what it takes to try and overcome all the problems and issues they may have in the line, like in the public light and then privately. But I can't honestly say there'd be one person that I've looked up to and been like, I want to be them, because I want to be myself, but I want to be my best self.
Yeah, nice. Is there an athlete outside of the extreme sports, this one in particular, that you'd be like, you really admire or are inspired by?
I've never honestly come up to a point and been like, I need to meet this person, or I need to watch what they do, because I try and watch as much as I can, sort of any different sport or any sort of extreme sport, or even professional sports. There's nothing more fun than sitting down and watching the best of the best try their best at the Olympics, right? So
yeah, so true. It's, whether you're into sports or physical activity or not, you can't help but just there's something about the Olympic Games, right?
Yeah, watching the world's best push themselves to the limit, and it is definitely a sight. Yeah,
it certainly is. So, Luke, what's on your bucket list in your sporting world?
In my sporting world? Oh, it's funny. I've always wanted to skydive, as just like you said before. But every time I bring it up, my parents are always like, "No, never doing that, never doing that." Yeah, they'll gladly lend me a hand to throw myself down an ice hill with knives on my feet.
So they're. I mean, you said they were supportive. They've been part of your family sponsorship, right? So you haven't yet been able to skydive. That's on your sporting bucket list. I say just do it anyway, mate.
I'll do it. I'll call them just before I get on the plane.
Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. What's on your personal bucket list, Luke?
I probably finished my Masters is the biggest thing.
Masters in metallurgy or chemical?
It is the metallurgical Masters.
Yeah, okay. So when are you looking to finish that?
So that should be about July next year.
Okay. So in the meantime, you are juggling a multitude of things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good on you. Mate, what's one bit of advice, just in closing out this interview, one bit of advice you would give to listeners about how to perform at their physical best?
Be consistent, and always take that risk. So if there's something you wanted to try, if it's a little bit different, you want to train a little bit differently, and you're a bit cautious of it, sometimes the craziest risks give the best rewards.
Sometimes the craziest risks get the best rewards. Mate, I think we have to close on that. That's terrific. That's very tweetable. Where can listeners find out more about you, Luke, and your ice crash downhill racing? Where can they go?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram of AussieCrasher. That's up to date as much as I can.
You're not even AussieCrasher 1 or 2. That just goes to show you that, this is pioneering stuff, right?
Yeah, that was straight up the first thing I thought about when I went to search for to get an account set up, and that was even so. The hashtag associated with that is usually Crasher from Down Under, and again that was not taken. So,
Wow. Well, I have to say, when I was introduced to you via your Instagram handle, I was intrigued. I'm like, well, what is this about? This is going to be cool, just from the name of your your Instagram handle. So, Luke, mate, on behalf of listeners, we wish you and myself all the best with this exciting journey, and I think we're going to have to connect back in at some point to get a round 2 update on how this world of yours is evolving.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. It'd be good to come back.
And in the meantime, mate, stay upright and skate fast. And listeners, feel free to drop over to the Facebook group for the Physical Performance Show over at POGO Physio. And also jump over the show notes and look out for the links and handles of where to find Luke and how to support Luke. And also, if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe in iTunes. And while you're there, drop a 5-star review. That helps more fellow peak performers be able to seek and be inspired to achieve their physical best. So until next time, get out there and seek your physical best. Catch you next time, guys.